Hi everyone. Today's narrative writing lesson is all about creating an extended story ending. So, as a writer, what are the steps you have to take to write a good story? First, an author plans a story, then crafts an entertaining beginning that hooks the reader right in. The author then goes on to describe something important to the story, either a story critical character, setting, or object. And then, of course, builds just a little bit of suspense, a hint of anticipation, making the reader wonder or worry. And if the reader wonders or worries, they read on, right into the main event. So you create a fully elaborated main event. And then, of course, the main event comes to a close. Either the main character solves the problem or concludes the adventure. But that's not the end of the story, is it? What are you supposed to do next? It's time to write an extended story ending. Notice it comes at the very end of the narrative writing diamond, and you see that's a small part of the story. You've really written the main part of the story, all of those elements. Now it's time to extend the story ending. This is where the main character might have a memory, make a decision, maybe remembers some feelings about the main event, or has a wish or a hope. I know a lot of you understand that you've got to end the story somehow. But some of the ways that we end stories just don't work. Here's a couple of those ways. I went home and went to bed. Well, that's just boring. I woke up and it was all a dream. Well, that is cheating the reader. I don't want to read a great story and then find out it was just a dream. That's not fair. Or how about this one? I hope you enjoy reading my story. Well, that's kind of boring. Or they lived happily ever after. We reserve that kind of ending for fairy tales only. And here's a famous one. I know some of you have used it. You've written the words, "the end," in big, bold letters at the end of your story, just to signify you're done. But those endings don't work. They're not satisfying to the reader. They're predictable, boring, and abrupt, and oftentimes disappoint the reader. Isn't it awful to get through that great story and then have one of those boring endings? Authors would never do that to their readers. So let's listen to what authors do. Here's a satisfying story ending from Charlotte's Web. Wilbur never forgot Charlotte. Although he loved her children and grandchildren dearly, none of the new spiders ever quite took her place in his heart. She was in a class by herself. It is not often that someone comes along who is a true friend and a good writer. Charlotte was both. That book was so good, I didn't want it to end either. That's what a good, satisfying, extended story ending does. It just lets you know that the book has come to a natural close. And this satisfying ending made us feel really good about that story. So how do we do that? Well, what we want to be able to do is ask some productive questions about the main character in order to cook up a great extended ending. The main character might have a memory, and so we would ask this productive question: what did you remember most? The main character could share some feelings. How did you feel about what happened? Maybe the main character might have a wish or hope for next time. So what would you wish or hope for? The main character might decide something, make a decision. What did you decide? Or have a defining action. What did you do? And so when we ask these questions in our head as an author, that's going to help us to write that satisfying extended ending. A satisfying ending needs to show how the main character has grown or changed in some way. So these strategies with those productive questions are going to help us to do that as authors. Let's analyze what E.B. White did in Charlotte's Web. Wilbur never forgot Charlotte. That's a memory. Although he loved her children and grandchildren dearly, none of the new spiders ever quite took her place in his heart. She was in a class by herself. That's a feeling. We know how Wilbur felt about his friend Charlotte. It is not often that someone comes along who is a true friend and a good writer. Charlotte was both. And that's a decision he made about Charlotte. So let's read this extended ending with our author's eyes. I want you to think about what strategies the author used to end this story. Buddy wagged his tail as he looked at little Will safe and sound at home. It had been a long day of searching for the lost boy, but Buddy never gave up, sniffing and following Will's scent. As Buddy settled into his bed, he hoped that Will wouldn't ever wander off again. But if he did, Buddy knew he'd track him down and bring him home. That's a great, satisfying ending. We can tell exactly what the story was all about, right? This is a story about Buddy the dog. Problem was, his boy got lost. Problem was solved when Buddy used his sniffing sense and was able to find Will. That's a little story summary based upon this extended ending. That's a great way of knowing that you've got a good extended ending, if your reader can summarize that story. So now let's think about the strategies that the author used here. Remember, is it a memory, a feeling, a wish or a hope, or a decision? Let's think about it. Buddy wagged his tail as he looked at little Will safe and sound at home. Which one is that? He's wagging his tail. That would be a feeling, wouldn't it? All right, let's continue. It had been a long day of searching for the lost boy, but Buddy never gave up, sniffing and following Will's scent. Yeah, that's a memory. He's remembering how he had to sniff and follow the scent. How about this one? As Buddy settled into his bed, he hoped that Will wouldn't ever wander off again. I bet you know which one this is. Yep, it's a wish or a hope. You got it. But if he did, Buddy knew he'd track him down and bring him home. Is that a memory, a feeling, a wish or a hope, or a decision? What do you think? Yes, that's a decision that Buddy makes. He'll never leave his boy alone. So let's review. After the main event concludes, an author will extend the story ending. Authors ask questions to extend the story endings. What did you remember most? That would produce a memory. How did you feel about what happened? Feelings. What did you hope or wish for? A wish or a hope. What did you decide? A decision. And what did you do? A defining action. And using these productive questions help us to avoid those boring, abrupt endings. Make sure that as you practice this skill, you learn to extend your ending using those questions. So what's the purpose of the story ending? To make your reader sorry to see the story end. Don't forget, use those productive questions and leave your reader feeling satisfied.